Hello, I'm Jenny King. I'm here to introduce my new collection, Moving Day. I'm sitting in Sheffield in our second floor flat, looking out over a lovely wide view full of trees in front of me. Over my shoulder was an even wider view with even more trees. We moved here 18 months ago, the end of 2019, from the house in which we'd lived for nearly 50 years, so that was quite a change. Thus the poem, thus the title of the book. When I started writing poems, I was about 7, I think, and it was just after the war, and paper was still rationed. I still have the book, which my parents, who were both language teachers and supportive of this kind of thing, made for me out of some scraps of paper they've managed to find here and there, beautifully hand sewn by my mother. Since then I've gone on writing poetry with no very long gaps, and when I was in my 20s I began to publish in magazines and in the occasional PEN anthology. They used to bring them out every year in those far-off days. And then I published 3 pamphlets, one in the early 80s and then a couple much more recently. But I had never published a collection before, a full collection. So when I started thinking, what do I put into a full collection, it was quite a daunting task. And I went back into my work as far as I felt comfortable with the poems, which in some cases was quite a way, but sometimes I would find that there was a poem I quite liked, but when I read it more carefully, there were so many things in it that I wanted to alter or change or edit that I abandoned it. There was an enormous amount to choose from, and a great many poems that were of the same kind of level of, yes, this is all right, but it's not very great. I hope that what's in the final collection is rather more carefully curated than that. I was asked to say what poetry or what books I had particularly enjoyed recently, and I've picked out 3 here. They are all poetry. I do read quite a lot of poetry, though by no means only. One of them is this by Karen Soley. Sorry, it's back to front. It's called The Capely Caves, and it is like most of the poetry I read. It is written in a style that is semi-accessible, that's to say. You don't read a line and think, what's going on here? I haven't the faintest idea where I am. It also starts from practical facts, as it were, and moves out from them into ideas and a wider consideration of things. It's experimental in style, but has a narrative and an interesting theme that I like. Also, Yvonne Boland, The Historians, the book that she that was published after she died, which was last year, and was produced posthumously by Carcanet after that. She writes from domestic situations and real-life situations to herself, and then widens out into a consideration, obviously here, history, family history in some cases, and thoughts about how the past impacts on the present, which is one of the things I'm particularly concerned with in my own poems. And then going back a little further, I've always enjoyed the poetry of doesn't matter if this one's back to front, of Sinead Morrissey, whose books I've been reading since I've got her first one, and so on. In my own poetry, I like to start from something practical, although what starts a poem off is always very hard to say, isn't it? It might be one thing or it might be something quite different. But mostly I like to start from something practical, which then leads into a wider thought. Mostly, I think, could sum up what I write about as either family, memory, history, and these things obviously connect. The fact that I'm married to a medieval historian does have an effect on my view of history and of the past altogether. When I started to write about family, obviously it was a long time ago. By now I have 2 further generations to write about. They all come into the poems somewhere. So I would like to finish by reading Moving Day. Moving Day. 1, 2, 3, and we vault across the valley and land here in another postcode, where a squirrel fossicks in the rain on the moss-lumpy roof of now our garage. And the back of my mind says, when we get home, but we are home. We wake to a mild, damp day and walls of boxes, oddments, which can't be returned to drawers which are ours no longer. The unencumbered squirrel sits on its haunches and enjoys the air. We are in the sky, living among treetops, in the region fir cones drop from. Out of the window, we sense the passing traffic of radio waves. The future, crouching in the valley, opens its arms as the sun rises, and the row of pines retract their shadows and whisper of possibilities. We empty and stow, fight through our box walls, like prisoners digging a way out. Evening comes, morning comes, the 4th day. Birds looking at us from their neighbourly branches. We are here for keeps. Day passes. Far down the valley, an owl couches his soft notes on silence.